Hey guys. Okay, so I just got to show you something because I feel some kind of way about it, and let me see if you do too. Congressman Byron Donalds, the Florida congressman, has been making the rounds, particularly to Black-hosted programs. He went on Abby Phillip. He went on the Reid to defend his comments in Philadelphia before a gathering of Black MAGAs, in which he, smoked a cigar, had a cocktail, and waxed on about Jim Crow, which he mentioned 3 times, in order to say that, during Jim Crow, the Black family was together. I mean, they were in dire poverty and facing apartheid and lynching and couldn't vote at all, but, they were together and somehow managed to vote conservatively, which couldn't happen because of Jim Crow. The comments I'm talking about.
You see, during Jim Crow, the Black family was together.
That's right.
During Jim Crow, more Black people were not just conservative, because Black people always have been conservative-minded, but more Black people voted conservatively. And then HEW, Lyndon Johnson, and then you go down that road, and now we are where we are.
So he's, been making the rounds because he's just been getting cooked, roasted by everyone from, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries to the NAACP to Sherilyn Ifill to Nicole Hannah-Jones. Michael Harriot took him to school on the Rio. He's just been getting fired up by everybody, just roasted mercilessly because of what he said. What he said was so offensive that it's just, everybody's been taking him down for it. But I want you to listen to his self-defense on Politics Nation, hosted by the Reverend Al Sharpton. Take a look.
We are going to talk about the era, Congressman, and you name a race-based law, then you cannot take race out of the fact Jim Crow was a law against Black people. You weren't just talking about the era of Dwight Eisenhower and Harry Truman. You named Jim Crow. There's only one way you could deal with Jim Crow, and that's by race. I mean, look, you and I have mutual friends. People say you're a straight shooter. Yes. We may disagree on politics. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. But look, you were born in Brooklyn. You went down into the South, went to Florida State. You have an interracial marriage. You're the congressman of a district that's not a Black district. I mean, how can you even live with yourself acting like Jim Crow was a good era or better era for Blacks? What happened to you?
Okay, that's real cute. That's real cute. I did not say that. And I'm not going to sit here and have to insinuate that against you. Because right now you're lying about what I said. I did say Jim Crow. I did reference it 3 times. That's not to say that it was better. I never said that. Those words never came out of my mouth. When are you going to get that through your skull and everybody else's skull? I never said that. And the difference between me and a lot of other Republicans, I'm not going to sit here.
You said it was better for us.
I'm not going to let you
under Jim Crow to bring families together. Did you say that?
Hakeem Jeffries was lying. The Biden campaign was lying.
All right.
So look at my words.
Okay, now, first of all, Reverend Al can handle himself and defend himself. He does not need me to do that. Let me just be clear. And he did that. He handled it very well and handled Byron Donalds' elevated tone quite well. But hang on a second. Who are you talking to, Congressman? First of all, you are speaking to a man, Reverend Al Sharpton, who was born during Jim Crow. He was born in 1954, okay? And who came up in the Kingian movement as just a kid. He started off like 9 years old as a 9-year-old kid preacher when Dr. King was alive and active, and then came up under the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who was an aide to Dr. King. So this is a man who, in New York, fought the northern version of Jim Crow, in which Black people were subjected to not only relentless police brutality, but also citizen brutality. We're talking about regular citizens, white citizens, feeling free to kill, chase down and kill, chase into traffic, and murder Black folk. Whether it was Bernie Getz on the subway or the killings of Yusuf Hawkins, we're talking about Howard Beach being a place you couldn't even go as a Black person, okay? We're talking about the Central Park 5 situation. We're talking about, you name it. Reverend Al was fighting the northern version of Jim Crow as a civil rights leader. So, Congressman, you are speaking to not just an elder, but a civil rights leader in our community. disrespectfully and in that heated tone on his show. You came into his house and spoke that way. He called him a liar. He told him he needs to get it through his skull. Bruh, who you talking to? It could not be clearer that Byron Donalds does not represent a majority black district, because no black politician could get reelected in a majority black district speaking to an elder and a civil rights leader the way he did, disrespectfully like that. Couldn't be done. And having established this the first time he was on the readout, he sat next to me and I wanted to get to know him a little bit, asked him some questions about himself. I know that Byron from Brooklyn was born in East Flatbush, where I was. He has a Jamaican mama, who he talked about in that video as well. His single mom is Jamaican. My late great mom was from Guyana. So I know how he was raised. I know his Jamaican mama does not approve of him speaking to an elder and a civil rights leader the way he did. Cannot be possible. And he is so lucky he does not represent a majority black district, because there would be no re-election like that. What he was doing was trying to show his belly to Donald Trump in hopes Donald Trump would pick him for vice president. Yeah, he's going to pick you, brother, the same way they were going to pick you to be Speaker of the House. And that pro-lynching congressman from Texas admitted afterwards that they only nominated you because the Democrats nominated Hakeem Jeffries and they wanted their own black nominee. And they did it strictly because of that, not because you were qualified. So they're going to pick you for VP the same way they were going to pick you to be Speaker. They had no intention of doing that, and Donald Trump has no intention either. But he wants to show his belly to white MAGA Republicans, and also to join in their hatred of the Great Society, of LBJ's Great Society, because how dare an American president put a floor under black folk who had suffered from hundreds of years of slavery followed by 100 years of Jim Crow. And by the way, those LBJ programs also put a floor under white rural folk, but nobody ever talks about that. They were trying to create an economic floor for the people who had been at the bottom of society. But white conservatives despise the LBJ programs and consider them to be welfare. Weirdly enough, as Nicole Hannah-Jones pointed out, they don't consider all of the government programs given to white Americans by FDR, including housing grants, assistance going to college, the GI Bill, you name it. A whole generation of white Americans were turned into middle-class people by FDR, but they don't consider that welfare. It's only welfare when black folk get it, because, black folk were largely cut out of the FDR stuff. Better that way. But LBJ, and then creating Medicaid and Medicare, unacceptable, because now black people didn't starve and weren't completely dependent on white folks to employ them, to cook and clean their homes and work in their fields. Oh, God forbid. And the fact that you have black conservatives joining in that argument and putting a black countenance over it, it's giving Clarence Thomas, who said the Freedmen's Bureau really wasn't for the blacks. And that, Brown v. Board may not have been such a great idea. It's giving Clarence Thomas, Congressman. And by the way, if you are so confident that your arguments were clearly right, that you were clearly in the right, and the comments were so defensible, why do you need to get that elevated? Your level of verbal and vocal elevation and the tone that you took with Reverend Al shows me that you know you were wrong, that you're embarrassed by your comments, that you're not proud of them. Because if you were proud of your comments and you thought they were so defensible, you wouldn't have to get that heated. It's a tell. You're showing that you know that you were wrong. Why don't you just admit you were wrong and keep it moving, rather than act like that on the television in front of everybody? Do better, Congressman. We see you. We see what you're doing. We see the act that you're putting on for them, to perform for them. And I hate to break it to you, but they're not going to pick you regardless. But anyway, thanks for playing, and be well. Peace out, fam.